What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Strength Solutions Podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Also, we're on YouTube. So if you want to right now, hit the subscribe button so that way it can be on your notifications. And then also leave a comment down below. We have a website, strengthsolutionspodcast.com. Email strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com. On social media, on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram is Strength Solutions Podcast. And on Instagram, I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
All right, let's get ready for this party. Okay.
Let's get it.
So you sent me this video a while back, and we talked about how bodybuilding is functional training.
Right.
Do you remember that video?
Yeah. So in the video, they were talking about how a lot of people will say things like, oh, just being big, that's not functional. Like I train, like animal flow or mace training or like functional patterns, things like that, where people are like, this is how you should really be moving. Like being big doesn't matter. We hear that argument all the time. And I feel like as I've gotten stronger and stuff too, more and more people try and tell me like what I'm doing is wrong.
That's not functional.
Yeah. Or just like, oh, well, the way that I train is better or whatever it is, And in the video, the guy was saying that muscle as a tissue itself is functional, right? Being strong is functional. Having a lot of strength, having a lot of muscle mass just on its own is quote unquote functional. And me and you both don't really like saying that, right? Because of this sort of conversation, right? Where people end up saying functional is only if you're crawling around or walking backwards or doing something crazy like that, and anything else isn't functional,
Dude, I'm going to say it right now is I really, really hate the fitness industry. And I love it at the same time.
Yeah.
Look, I hate the fitness industry because we're more worried about labels and being right than we are to get the right answer.
Right.
So in this perfect equation is functional training. That's not functional training. That's bodybuilding. I got to be carnivore. Got to be vegan. You could go down the list with fitness, right, and it's always about being right.
Yeah, it's never about what's best for you, right? Sometimes we'll hear people have that sort of conversation, but most of the time it's more about trying to prove someone else wrong in order to fit your narrative about what's best, right? And so I thought it was an interesting video because I think it is important to just realize that on its own, lifting, if you just go to lift, right? Or if you just want to be really strong, all of those things are important. And you can't do everything, unfortunately. You can do them all in pieces, right? You can't do them all the time. So just remember, if you are training, if you're doing anything, whether it's bodybuilding, mace training, kettlebells, powerlifting, whatever you're doing, if it's what you want, if it's your goal, if you feel good doing it, then just keep doing it because that's what's important at the end.
Dude, so we're going to go into this labeling, right? And it made me think about society beyond just fitness and how fitness is very good at telling you what's going on with society as well. And we're talking about labeling, and we label with ourselves diagnosis of like ADHD. Yeah. I have this. I'll never be strong enough, and I'll never do this. And I think in life, we're so focused on fucking labels that we just need to live in the moment.
Yeah, I think a lot of people tend to identify with certain things, right? Or as certain things. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's also this sort of victim mentality.
Correct.
I was having this conversation with my brother over the weekend.
I forgot you had one of those.
Yeah. And I never talk about him, never. And we were having this conversation about someone we know, and we were like, if people like this or if certain individuals and stuff could just accept sort of who they are, then they would be way more open and make a lot more progress in all aspects of life, whether it's fitness or whether it's financial success or jobs or school or whatever. But too many people, I think, get very defensive, or they identify as things like you're saying here. I could never be that strong. Never going to do that. A lot of the people now with TikTok and things will self-diagnose themselves, like you said.
It's so bad.
And it's funny.
I'm an avoidant man.
Right.
No, go to someone who's a specialist, right?
I'm a Capricorn.
I'm a Capricorn.
Yeah. And no.
He is not a Capricorn.
I'm not. And, I was talking to my therapist about this a while back. And because we were talking about like my daughter, because sometimes I wonder, like, does she have ADHD? Does she have like attention disorders and things like that? Or is she just a kid? Right. And my therapist was telling me that they've kind of upticked in diagnoses around things like that, right? But a lot of the times she was like, we don't know if it's because we're getting better at diagnosing it, or more people are coming in saying they have these things and then sort of forcing a diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
Of being like, I can see everybody who has ADD does these things, right? So I'm going to go tell my therapist, I do this, I do that. And then they have no choice but to be like, well, I guess maybe then you have that, right?
Or if in the modern lifestyle adds to this problem of ADHD, ADD, or other diagnoses that are out there, right? Instead of saying we can control it, it's just the modern lifestyle and learning how to avoid modern lifestyle items and modern lifestyle things.
Yeah, because we do have, I feel the consensus around everybody is that we have shorter attention spans, right? We're on our phones all the time. Things are a lot quicker. It's hard to pay attention, in schools or things like that. And so...
What'd you say?
Yeah. Huh? I forgot.
Yeah, I already forgot.
And so I just feel that we already have this kind of lower standard, right? And then so now anything below that is just, and I don't know, we're just in a weird spot.
Yeah, I think as people we're learning because we have more time to think, and I think we've gotten so extreme the labeled way that we're starting to go back the other way. I think people even themselves out over time,
right?
Something that us millennials can learn from the boomer generation. If it doesn't bother you, then why do you care?
Yeah, right. That's a super huge one, is stop worrying about things that don't affect you, right?
Yeah, I mean, just like, what's going to affect you is sending your daughter to school and she's going to be a lesbian.
Yeah.
You saw that where the UFC fighters like, I'm going to homeschool my kids so they're not
so
gay.
That they don't become gay.
Dude, don't you think that's crazy when people are just like that extreme and they think something, and what happens is I bet you he listens or watches social media. And we use social media, the minority people can talk loud in there, and then you think that's how the whole society is. And we forget if we just look in front of us and talk to actually real people, society is nothing like social media.
Right, yeah. It's kind of when you have that preconceived notion of things that have already happened, Again, in conversation I was having with my brother, we were talking about how you have everybody that you have like a perception of that person, right? And what they're going to do or what they're going to act like. And most of the times whenever you have conversations with people, it's never really the way you think it's going to go, right? Because you have already this like, I think they're going to do this. I know this person, they're going to act this way. And then it never ever happens. The same thing here, looking at this guy, it's like, I'm sure maybe he had one really good friend, maybe their kid, goes to a public school and they're trans or something. So now he's freaked out about everybody doing that. But I've heard this from people that I know that have homeschooled their kids. One of the main reasons I asked them, I'm like, why did you homeschool them? And they're just like, schools are just crazy now. You can't trust them. There's too much this, too much that. To an extent, I understand, but I don't know.
I hate when people blame schools. I blame parenting.
Right.
Yeah, it goes back to where they're with their parents most of the day on the weekend. When you can influence, you have a greater influence factor than the school will.
And I've understood too through therapy. My therapist used to work with children a lot, and she would say, no matter what, children for some reason will always hold on to what their parents said, even if it's a small amount, or even if, grandparent says this over and over and over again, but my mom said this thing, they just hold on to that. So that's how much influence you have as a parent, right? Schools can say whatever, students, friends. There is a point. There is a point where friends take over. Yeah,
that's teenagers. But also, if you look at it, kids' beliefs, your beliefs are going to affect your daughter's beliefs. My beliefs are going to affect my kids' beliefs.
Right.
So if I instill in them, hey, you can work hard, you can make everything happen yourself. Or if I say, oh, the government is this and that. And I fell in that trap because I heard that a lot when I was younger.
Yeah.
And it affects the way you grow up. You have to get out of it and make it your own.
For like a quick example, the other day I was hanging out with my daughter, and I don't know why she was like hooked on this thing. Maybe she was feeling a little insecure for some reason. I have no idea. But she was like, am I the prettiest girl in the world? Like, she kept asking me that over and over. And I was like, I could sit here and be like, yes, yeah, whatever. But after a while, I was just like, you don't need to like think that. Like, I was like, you just have to be you. I think you're pretty. Like, you have to think you're pretty. And that's all that matters. Like, you don't have to sit there and be worried about if you're prettier than that person or whatever, you know. And it's crazy how you already see that like happening, even at that young of an age, where it's like, I don't want her to value herself on just how she looks, right? There's so many more things that you can value yourself on. Well, I'm not going to pretend like that isn't an aspect of society, right? Especially for women, but it's not something I want
for men too, bro.
For men too, right? But I don't want her to instill in herself like my prettiness is my highest value, you know?
Speaking of pretty, right? There's a study.
We're going to talk about me next.
Yeah. I said pretty, not ugly.
Oh. Now I have to go talk. Now I have to go to therapy, bro. You fucking up.
Stupid. There was a study that service was perceived better from attractive flight attendants than unattractive flight attendants.
Weird.
So it makes me think of other trends that are happening, right? So we're talking about sales of clothing companies and other things like that. And there is a trend. Models are going to be thinner now. You're starting to see a lot of things like have attractive people again, not just your average Joe. And it's just the trend that's starting
it's so
to
funny
go back
how
the way it was.
Cyclical just life is in general, because I mean, you worked at Target before I did, right? By a number of years, I'm assuming.
I think so.
Okay, so when I was there, I worked in the quote unquote soft lines department, which is like the clothing stuff. It's for all the girls. They put me there, bro. They were like, you know what? You can probably go to the clothes. We'll keep the boys over here. But it was funny
because your testosterone was there. So.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. When I worked there, I could see it happen because there was this trend happening where they were changing a lot of like, whether it was mannequins or just pictures of models, right? Like for advertising clothing and stuff like that, to be more diverse, right? Where some of the models were a little bit larger, or some of the models didn't look like your, picturesque vision of what a model would look like, right? Maybe they were larger. Maybe they had like, there was like a big thing where a lot of them had like vitiligo, like the skin condition, different coloring, things like that. I mean, it's cool, right? No problem with it at all. I think it kind of maybe should be that way. But now we're seeing that it's going backwards again. It's going back to that.
Because that's what sells.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was Lululemon was like, we'll never have a overweight section and stuff like that. And they choose to do that, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're a consumer. You can put your money where you want to.
Right.
And where people are putting their money is people who are more attractive in sales. Yeah. Same concept. I mean, I think we talked about it last week where the taller you are as a guy, the more money you're likely to get. It's just an attractiveness.
For both sexes.
Yeah, it does not discriminate. And it's true when you go out to a bar, a prettier girl versus a not girl as pretty gets a free drink. Yeah. Or
the bartender's going to get more tips.
A guy who's taller or not taller or good looking. It just is what it is.
It just is what it is.
It's human nature. Speaking of human nature, let's talk about poor versus rich. And you sent me this Reddit about why do people get upset when poor people get free rides, but when rich kids get a free ride from inheritance, nobody complains.
Yeah, if anything, they're like happy about it, I would say, But yeah, I mean, how many times do you hear people be like, oh, all these kids are on welfare and they're just getting free rides in, or what was
I think they gave a bad example, right? And my example would have been more like, what about all the property investors who are making money because they're keeping the home prices up and they're investing in homes and they get all these tax breaks on top of it just for buying land, creating assets, and it's just sitting there and it's making it hard for the first time home buyer.
Oh yeah. It's
to get any equity.
It's incredibly difficult to get any equity or to even get into a home, dude. Like the amount of homes that I've seen going to like open houses and stuff like that for an entry level price range, not an entry level home, but an entry level price range of like 250,000, you get less than 1,000 square feet of home, bro, not apartment, like actual home. Yeah. And it's like, how am I supposed to raise, even if it was just me and Camille, and I didn't have a kid, even that would be difficult, because then I'd be like, how do we even raise a kid here? There's no space, you know?
I
And
don't
then,
even think the space is the issue. Now you're exaggerating.
Well,
I'll give you that.
I think it would be difficult. I don't think it would be
think it's be
comfortable.
difficult. I think we take for granted. I grew up in a home that was very small, 2 bedrooms with 3 brothers in 1 room. It's possible.
Yeah, it's
The
possible.
problem I have is more the affordability, where I hate when I hear older generations tell me, well, you know, it's 4-to-1. I mean, theirs was like 4-to-1, I believe, income to house ratio, right?
Wow.
Ours is a little bit closer to 6 to 7-to-1. So, and then they were like, well, we had 18% interest rates. Yeah, but the house was this much. So 18% at this much versus 6% or 7% at this much is way different when we look at numbers.
Yeah.
And the cost of the loan
Right.
and how much you're actually paying in interest. And because your income goes up as it has, that 18% interest was not really a big deal. 2, y'all probably refinanced as you went down through.
Right.
So there's multiple factors that has happened in the past. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. But my biggest thing is not the space part. I don't like when people bring up space. Like, this is plenty of space, and in other countries in Europe and stuff like that, I wouldn't bring up. That's like a poor.
I get
choice.
it.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't say that it's like
It's more the
main
price
reason. It's
of it.
more of like whether it's what is the word that I'm looking for? I don't even know what I'm trying to think of. Like ideal. It's there's like an ideal and then there's not. Is it possible? Yes, right. Like, I grew up in a small home too. I've seen smaller homes. I mean, my mom lived in like a 2-bedroom.
I think the problem is the price for the home size. That's
Yes.
probably what you're talking
That's
about.
what I'm talking about.
Like,
yeah.
if that home was on 150,
Then I'd
not
be like,
250.
this makes sense. Yeah.
This makes
you know
sense,
what I mean? Yeah. But it was like the amount that I guess that's where I should have went with that, is that, yeah, it's more of what I'm getting for my actual
That's
dollar.
what I'm here for, to correct you.
Yeah.
No, it's
don't
just,
spank me.
and when people talk about wealthy people, one, their parents made the money, not them. This just tells you life is not fair. Life is not fair on your height, attractiveness, nothing. And I hate when people are like, we need to be all equal. It's never going to be all equal
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Not at this point.
So I think what we could teach people mostly is how to deal with their current situation, work through their current situation. How do they get better at where they're at?
Yeah.
And how do I learn how to be happy? And I think a lot of times too is we think we deserve all these things,
Yeah.
and I deserve this, I deserve that,
like
or
jealousy.
I'm entitled to this. I think a lot of people's problems are themselves. For example, we're at the highest credit card debt we've ever had, highest student loan debt we have ever had, which I don't really blame the people for the student loan, but I'm just saying they haven't gone and paid it. They haven't made a plan. They haven't been shown financial stability.
Yeah.
Also, the cars that people buy.
Yep.
Right? I blame themselves living outside their budget a lot.
There's far more you
Yeah.
can control than there is that you can't.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to teach people is like, what can you control? Like, let's go back into nutrition and fitness. What can I control? I can control myself not buying stuff at the grocery store, so that way I'm less likely to eat it when I'm here, like chips,
Yeah.
cookies, drinks, just certain things. Find out what you can control. Like, you can control how much microplastics in your testicle.
Actually, I don't know.
Actually,
I don't know about that one. Yeah, so they've done this study recently that showed that I think every male at this point has some sort of amount of microplastics inside the testicle. And this is one of those things, because a lot of people, I think, in the comments were like, what do I do? How do I, reduce it? Or how do I just like not get it at all? And at this point, it's kind of like you kind
It's
of
in the air.
can't. It just is.
In the environment.
It's in the environment. It's in the air. It's in everything. So you can probably, like you said, what can I control? Well, I can control not being a total idiot, right?
Yeah.
And just eating, because I'm sure some people will go with that and be like, well, what's the point of even trying? I'm just going to do whatever then, right? No, you can still do a lot, right? And improve your health, or at least try and mitigate how much of this we intake. But it is a little bleak to think about that. You're just like, man, it's just kind of is what it is, right? Like we've been saying, it just is what it is. Control what you can, and stop eating plastic.
Speaking of male private parts,
We love that on this podcast, bro. That's what we're known for.
did you know the average man penis has gone up 24% in 9 years?
That's a lot in a short amount of time. Isn't that crazy?
Well, from when they did a study before to now, yes.
Yeah.
this just tells you it's also female choice.
It's because we were joking in text, right? And I was like, this is natural selection, man. This is really honestly what it is, right? Because that seems
Let's
to be.
speculate why this has happened.
Okay. I'm gonna go with probably my first thought goes to like pornography. My first thought is that I think there's a lot of intake of that. A lot of people see larger size, right. This is what's pleasurable. This is what's desirable. This is what we want. This is what everybody talks about. People who have smaller ones, we're not going to pretend like they don't get made fun of. They're the brunt of jokes. You know what I mean? It's an insult, things like that.
It's made people who have a larger penis more confident than someone who has smaller.
Yeah, because as society, we've like decided that this makes you more of a man or whatever it is, right? And so as everybody hears that, right, whether it's guys or girls, they're going to be like, well, I don't want a guy with a small dick. I want someone who has a larger one.
Also, I think the size of women. Remember we talked about how
that's another
they've gotten heavier. You think about extra skin that they have in the front. Now to insert, you need more.
You would require it, yeah.
Versus before.
That's crazy. That's a whole nother end of it, right? Where it's like, let's talk about the health level, right? Like it's not just about guys. Maybe there's also this other aspect of it where literally if I have a, below average penis, then I wouldn't be able to have sex with a lot of the majority of people, right? Especially down here, it's like where the obesity level is a lot higher. So, and then, if those people procreate, reproduce, have children, then those genes are going to get passed on. And over time, penis sizes are just going to get bigger,
It's crazy to think about, right? Natural selection.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. Survival of the fittest. Steve, survival of the biggest. Let's go.
Okay. Biggest loser.
Yeah.
And we did talk about the economy earlier, and I didn't talk about this too. How old is your vehicle?
I think it's a 2020. So it's going to be 5 years old.
Okay. Me 4. It's going to be 5.
It's going to be 5, yeah.
Okay. Mine's a 2017, so
oh, wow.
3. It'll be, I guess, 8 years next year.
Uh-huh.
The average vehicle age now is at an all-time high.
I saw this.
12.6 years.
Yeah, people are keeping their cars a lot longer. I was listening to a podcast. That's what it was. Do you know who Daniel Tosh is?
Yes. Funny guy.
Yeah. He has his own podcast. And his whole thing is that he only brings people on to talk that are not famous. So he'll just bring on random people, like friends that he has, or like, his car salesman or whatever. So this one was about his car broker, which is someone who sort of like does the deal for you. It was really interesting. I didn't even know this as a concept. But that guy was talking about the fact that people do keep their cars longer now. Like you said, 12.6 years. And to his point, he was like, it's economy, a lot of these things. But also something that I found interesting is that he was like, I don't think people understand how cheap it is to upgrade. I don't think people have the knowledge or anything like that to know that if they wanted to upgrade, it's not really this crazy expense that you take on or anything like that. It really isn't too much, especially if you're just upgrading a bit, right? You're not going crazy with this thing, which I think most people end up thinking. They're like, well, it has to be this giant upgrade. And it's like, no, you can go up 2 years or whatever it is. Now, in my case, I tend to think about the fact that I'd sort of kind of always be trapped in debt, making payments all the time, but maybe for some people it doesn't matter. But it is interesting to...
But 12.6 is a lot.
12.6 is a hell of a long time, bro. That's a super long time. And I think...
That means the average car is from 2012 to 2010 to 2012.
Yeah. I mean, until I got this car, I was driving cars around from 2007, bro.
You know what it tells me? It tells me something's got to pop, dude. Something.
Yeah, because...
The last part of inflation is housing, because I'm starting to see in retail stores prices going down. Starting to see the car market go down.
I've seen gas prices go down.
Well, there's a little bit more to that, like artificially
Joe Biden
making it down, yes, which is not good, getting rid of reserves. But let's not go there.
Buy a Tesla, bro.
I've been thinking about it. But the last part is the housing market, and that's what we were talking about earlier. The investors, the building of houses. It's the first time in forever that it is cheaper to rent, I learned this today, to rent in all 50 states than it is to buy a house.
Wow.
And this is like the first time ever.
That's insane.
That's
not good.
Crazy.
It's like, what do they call it? Indentured servitude, where you just like never pay off your debt ever. And you just like keep working for the rest of your life. Keep paying the government money forever.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I saw this thing with Warren Buffett talking about how if the top, I don't want, let's just say 30 companies actually paid their taxes, that not another person would have to pay tax.
That's insane, dude.
I got to show you the video. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah.
But he literally says it. And he's like, I don't mind paying taxes. I'll pay $800 billion. Like, we got plenty of money. It just shows you. I don't want to go too extreme and be like, oh, you got to tax the rich, but I also don't want to be like, hey, they're paying their fair share.
They're definitely not. Right?
Because
we can all agree that.
I hate when people like back these companies up and they're like so hard. Like, how else do you think yes, it's hard to start a company. My question is not that they shouldn't get more of the money because they started the company, they created something, and they're paying employees. I get it. They should get a lot of money. But what is enough is the question. Yeah. Like, what can we decide is like in a happy range? Because most people think that the pay gap is like this little curve like this, that think like that.
Yeah.
When the actual gap is like this. It's very vertical.
It's exponential.
Exponential, yes. And it's more about what's fair in society in that aspect.
Yeah. And
I'm not going to say we're all equal because there's different skill sets.
Right.
I'm not that extreme. And I think we need to find more people that are not that extreme and talk about this in like a real way to help society.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go into 2 studies. The first study is 2 decades of studies suggest health benefits associated with plant-based diets. What do you think?
I think there's just so much to it. I don't like, so I'm sure there's more to it, right? This is like sort of like a headline thing, but we see a lot of studies like this where
you didn't read it.
Yeah, no. Where people will say like, oh, the plant-based diet, this is the best one, right? I've seen there's the fucking movies. There's a bunch of shit that's out there, right? And I think that what it ends up coming down to is just that people that tend to do things like this, right, tend to also be healthier in so many other aspects, right? There's just, with the same thing, we saw a study a long time ago that was like people who take a multivitamin have like less risk of heart attack or something like that. And it was like, okay, is it the multivitamin or is it people who are health conscious, right?
No, that like if you're plant-based, you're more likely to consume less calories than the average individual. Right. Also, you got to see who does the study. It's very biased. Actually read it and I'll let you check it out.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what diet you do, whatever you do. If you're in a calorie deficit, which is most likely pretty easy to get done in a plant-based diet.
Oh, yeah.
You're less likely to have that issue.
Right.
It has nothing to do with meat at all or dairy.
No.
It's just biases, right?
Yeah.
Explain it. All right. The second study was a sleep study. And it was talking about anything less than 7 hours of sleep, you have more of a chance that is associated with a greater risk of musculoskeletal injury.
I did read this one.
By 1.7. This one was the long one. It was the long one. All right.
Yes. Yeah. So they were talking about how getting anything less than 7 hours of sleep is you increase your risk. What is it here? 1.7 times greater risk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of musculoskeletal injury as compared to someone who.
And then as sleep decreased, it was a higher risk.
It followed, right? Yeah, it correlated. And I mean, it's like, yeah, this makes total sense. So, for example, over this weekend, it was the Memorial Day weekend. Oh, bro, we didn't even talk about our weekends, bro. Yeah. It was Memorial Day weekend, stayed up a little later, drank a lot, stuff like that. On Monday came around, I took the day off because I wanted to spend some extra time with my daughter because she was off of school too. And at some point I was like, you know what, after I drop her off, I'm probably going to go to the gym, stuff like that. Bro, I was like, if I go to the gym today, it's going to be a horrible waste of time. I'm super tired. I could imagine, and the things that I wanted to do, I literally thought to myself, I was like, it is not safe for me to go to the gym today. If I went to the gym today and tried to do those things that I was planning on doing, I definitely would have hurt myself or just not performed as well as I thought,
Yeah.
And so this makes sense. I mean, if you're not recovering, if you're not focused, especially because I think they did athletes, right?
Yes.
Like you have to be in it. You know what I mean? There's no,
you got to be in it to win it.
yeah, there's no half-assing here, right? Because you're going to be doing high-level stuff. So if you're all groggy and half asleep, then you're not going to get anything done.
So with this study and the study of weight loss, it just shows you how vital sleep is. If y'all don't remember the study from weight loss, it was a study done and there was, let's just say they lost 10 pounds. The group that slept well with the calorie deficit, they lost 10 pounds, but they only lost 3 pounds of muscle. And then the other group, they actually lost 7 pounds of muscle. So they just told it's valid that sleep is just vital to human nature.
It just is. Yeah.
All right. Before we go into the fitness questions and you're crying and whining about it, let's go into your weekend, Memorial Day weekend.
I just want to talk about how cool I am. That's all.
Okay.
All the parties I went to.
Yeah.
No, on Saturday, it was my nephew graduated kindergarten, big first step. He's getting a job tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He's going to work with Tesla.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was really cool. It was funny. They had we went to his basketball game.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of like 5 and 6 year olds. Dude, it's crazy watching them run around and play the game because I was like, they're like playing for real. They're like really trying to bounce the ball. You can see them like learning how to do defense and like, dude, there was this one little girl, bro. She was there to play, dude. Like,
she was in it to win it.
She was like in their faces, like moving around. I was like, damn. And just seeing them like engage in sport, like in team play and doing stuff. Of course, did they get the ball and it was like they were just trying to shoot it in the basket? Yeah, but it was like I could see how this progresses into them. Like I was watching them and I was like, they're learning discipline, they're learning how to work on a team, they're learning how to move their bodies. The quarters were like, I want to say 8 minutes. And they just had them boom, 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 down and back the court the whole time. And I was like, dude, I'd be wrecked. I'd be super tired.
They're kids. You don't think?
Yeah, dude, they're just like full of energy. And it made me think about children too. I don't know if you saw, I sent you a video pretty recently, but it was like an old commercial about like health and avoiding mindless eating. Super old commercial, like it looked like it was from like the 60s or 70s, some shit like that. But they were talking about like how you need to move, and I think there was also a video I sent you of JFK talking about it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And it just made me think. I was like, man, dude, children really need to be constantly moving and active, and the fact that life just isn't like that anymore is just crazy. How was your weekend, man? What did you do?
I was busy. I went to my in-laws, had to play the husband part. And then Sunday, I had to go to Andretti. So I raced a little bit.
Oh, did you?
Laser tag.
You did the carts?
We had our arcades, and the guy I was playing was former military and play a lot of shooting games. Let's just say I did not win one of them. From a score perspective, we're on the same team, but from a score perspective, I did not win one of them.
This is what we call carrying. He carried you.
He carried me.
Yeah.
Dude, but the way he held the gun was like real and everything. I was like just chilled. Like here.
Sideways.
Right? Like you have the Halo shotgun here. He was all... I was like, I'm trying to keep my shoulder relaxed.
He was like, bro, this is real life right now.
This is real life.
We're doing this.
And then on Memorial Day, I worked, and that's about it.
Very nice, man.
Yeah. All right, guys, if you like what we're doing, we're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Then we're on YouTube. Please subscribe right now and hit the like button so that future people can check us out. Leave comments down below. Our website is strengthsolutionspodcast.com. Our email is strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Our social media on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram is Strength Solutions Podcast. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin on Instagram.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
All right, we got our first question. This was a really, really good question. Yeah. My kids want to bulk up. He's working out, but he's also 6 foot and 154 pounds and burns about 4,000 calories a day from cross-country running. He's only trying to gain about 10 pounds. How do I go about this? This kid's going to have to be eating carbs and fats for the most of his day.
Okay, so I already had this conversation a little bit and talked with them because this is someone that I knew. But I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, first I got to know what's more important, the cross country or actually gaining weight?
Right, yeah. That was one of the questions I asked you.
Okay.
I think in this case, it was difficult because I feel like it was a bad time to be thinking about putting on weight.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say that he's more focused on putting on weight.
Okay. And when's the season?
He's got I think he had about 3 months that he was trying to do this within.
But 3 months the season starts, or 3 months?
So cross country seems to be something that he just enjoys doing. I don't really think he's like in and out of season from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But his, from the story that I got is that his girlfriend is currently out of the country, or out of state, or out of the country, doing another sort of endurance level event, and she's going to be gone for like a number of months. And so he was taking the time to focus on bulking while she was kind of out, because they do a lot of their endurance stuff together. They train a lot together. So he was like, now I have this time to kind of just maybe put on a little bit of weight.
First of all, protein, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe don't run as much if it's not that vital to you for cross country, but you can maintain your endurance pretty well.
Yeah.
By running maybe 2 to 3 days a week.
Right.
Then you could do a program like Imply, which is not too much volume.
Yes.
Which is just enough. And that's probably where my foundation would be. From just the information that I have, I would need a lot more information of like how emotionally are they invested in this?
Yeah.
And are they willing to eat this much protein consistently and back off their running? And that would be the way we would go about it.
Yeah. So when I was talking to them, I had told him, I was like, okay, well, I was like 4,000 calories a day. I don't know maybe where that information is coming from. Maybe it's coming from like a calorie, fat burning watch thing. Where
I don't like that either. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, maybe he's not really burning that many. And I was like, let's say I put him in a surplus, what I think would be a surplus of like 3,000, right? High, because he is running a lot. He said he runs like 13 miles, like every other day.
But again, this is where calorie counters go wrong. Is
Right.
Your body becomes more efficient as
so
you get better at it.
He's definitely not burning as many calories as his watch says, right? So I was like, let's say 3,000, right? Let's just say, because maybe he does have a high metabolism and he's still going to keep doing his cardio. So I got to fight that a little bit here. And I got to get him to put on muscle. So I was like, let's say he does 3,000 calories. So from there, remember a long time ago where we sort of like broke down how to make your macros? I essentially did that, right? I was like, I probably would get him at least 170 to 180 grams of protein, right? And then from there, I can kind of manage the rest. And I was like, that's me being pretty easy on it. I just need him eating that many. To eat that many calories, though, which I'm assuming he's probably not if he's 154 pounds and 6 foot, right? I was like, he's going to have a rough time trying to put food down. So I was like, carbs and fats are probably going to be the easiest things for him to eat, right? Without feeling super, super, super full from eating loads of protein. So then I kind of was like, let's do this many carbs, let's do this many fat. And I was like, the thing is, at the end of the day, he definitely is going to have to cut his running a little bit, right? He's going to have to take at least a day or two out of that.
It's going to affect his muscle.
It's going to affect
his running.
Yeah, it's just inevitable, right? And he's going to have to resistance train pretty. And so I told him too, I was like, I would rather him do really like focus on his giant compound lifts, right? He's got to do his squats, got to do the deadlifts, got to do like these big movements to get a lot of it. I don't want him doing 15 reps of shit, like none of that. Like he's got to put mass on,
He's got to put mass on, and then as we go along, we can add an endurance factor, because as we get closer to season, it'll benefit him more.
Right, yeah. And then from there, he can just maintain from that end. Mostly, I was like, it's going to be a lot on if he can actually eat this surplus or not. And so I was like, start here.
Dude, he might be surprised that he thinks his kid is eating a lot, but he's not really eating a lot. I don't know how to say it besides that.
No, I get it. Yeah.
But he's maybe eating 2,000 calories and he thinks he's eating 4,000.
Right.
But he maybe just have like meals that look big, but doesn't have enough frequent meals throughout the day.
Yeah. And the thing is too, that I'm like, if you're at this height and if you're at that low of a weight and you're doing this much cardio, like you're gonna have to eat so much food, because you clearly have a really high or fast metabolism, right? And so you're gonna be burning calories. You clearly need to be in a higher surplus if you need to want to put on any sort of pounds. So I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of like when I was talking to Ethan about like he did our Magnify program. I was like, you don't need much volume. You need to focus on your eating, and it made a huge difference.
That's what I said. I was like, I want to maybe doing 5 exercises, doing like 3-4 sets, 6 to 8 rep range, maybe 8 to 10 really if he has to. And the rest of it has just got to be food. You just got to be eating.
Mm-hmm. All right. Question number 2. What is your stance on electrolyte supplements?
I'll have you know that when I was asked this question, they said, I want to know what y'all think about electrolytes. I think they're bullshit.
I want to know who this is.
Give me their name and phone number.
Yeah. I want to talk.
Give me their address.
They're bullshit according to who needs them, right?
They're bullshit according to why you're using them.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I'm a person who eats ultra processed foods, I don't really work out, of course.
I don't need to be taking
It's stupid. Yeah. If I'm someone who works out consistently, I sweat a lot, or like right now it's very humid in San Antonio and hot. There's a day where sometimes I have 2 electrolyte powders, and it's not enough. And I'm eating mostly whole foods.
Yeah.
So it really depends on those factors. You're not going to tell me they're bullshit when athletes have to take them during games because, they literally are dehydrated.
Why they were created, right? That's why Gatorade existed.
Gatorade, yes. Gatorade. And it's funny, Gatorade from the store is different than actual electrolyte mix.
Yeah. So I have like Gatorade powder that I use sometimes. And it's funny that we were even having this conversation because I came in today and asked you for electrolytes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, I think it's, like you said, I think that it's bullshit depending on who's using it. And I think it's bullshit depending on why you're using it. If you're just taking them all the way because you think you're supposed to, or that's what needs to be done or something like that, then yeah, you definitely don't need to be using them.
So I'm going to give you a perfect example. So I think fat burners are mostly bullshit.
Right.
But if someone needs it to suppress their appetite and they know in what moment they need it, also if they need the placebo effect.
Yeah. If they're just like, oh,
right.
Yeah.
They think they need it. I get it. Right. There's tools or all these things are tools.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why like I use pre-workout. Not essentially because it like makes me lift so much heavier or anything like that, but it just sort of makes me be like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym right now. I'm getting into the mindset of it. Today I was thinking about clothes that I wear. If I'm wearing, certain types of clothes, then I know that I'm ready to just chill. If I have something else on, like Camille makes fun of me a lot because I'll like get ready. Like I'll put an outfit on if I'm going to like work on the computer. And she's like, that's super weird that you do that. And I'm just like, it just makes me feel like
it separates your spaces.
I'm like doing something. Yeah. Cause if I'm sitting on the computer in what I was just asleep in, I don't want to be on the fucking computer. I want to be in bed.
All right. Question number 3. What is the thing that everyone says matters, but doesn't matter when it comes to fitness and health?
There's so many.
No, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Like I would say supplements is an easy one.
Supplements would probably be the most general one, right?
Okay, I'm going to tell you something that we talk about that does matter, but doesn't matter is programming. In the sense, if you're not consistent,
then the program doesn't matter. That's a super good one. I would say supplements, programming for sure. And man, I'm trying to think of something else here. I'm trying to think of what people mostly come to me and ask, like, should I be doing this or should I be, taking that or whatever it is? I don't know. I think a lot of it, sometimes there's like foods, like people will focus a lot on superfoods or foods they're supposed to be
that's
eating.
A good one.
Yeah. Like they'll be like,
superfoods.
should I be doing this? Or I remember I had a client one time and she was talking about like meal plans and stuff like that. Cause she was kind of asking me if I would do one. And I was like, no. And I was like, has the trainer given you one before? And she said, yes. And I was like, what did it have on it? And it was just like,
chicken and rice,
just
broccoli.
just like normal shit. Like it was like oatmeal, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, did he tell you why he had you do any of this stuff? And she was like, no. And I was like, see, this is one of those things where you're focusing on the wrong stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need you to do a meal plan right now. I need you to do so many other things first.
I need you first just to eat your protein.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And also, it's so funny because I see a lot of meal plans and they are stuff like that where it's like, eat oatmeal, eat this, eat what. And I'm like, where do you get the protein at? Like, it's always just like, stuff that people think is healthy. So
speaking of the meal plan and like all this stuff, there was a post that I put, it was precision nutrition, and it was talking about like mindful eating. And it's like sometimes mindful eating is making the food and making it a whole foods base.
Yeah.
Sometimes mindful eating is ordering pizza because you just want to spend more time with your kids because you don't have enough time, right? Yeah. So we're so complex as humans. Like that's the hard part.
Yeah.
And people want the simple answer. It's not that simple. Yeah. It's just not. All right. Question number 4. What do you think that you see right now on social media about fitness that will change in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, damn. That's a super good question. Things that I see right now.
So I'll give you mine.
Okay,
All
go.
Because I had more time to think about it.
Yeah.
So something I think is going to change is this concept. And I think we're going to be part of the movement of this or that. It's going to turn into more nuance. And I think it's going to happen just like with this idea of relationship advice, financials. I think people are going to be more nuanced in the future. We're going to go through this next 5 years of just horrible information of like this or that. But now we're to start telling people, and we're starting to hear with our YouTube channel and the shorts and the videos we post about, look, you could do high bar versus low bar. This is what this does. This is what that does. And I think that's going to become more commonplace in the future as people gain more knowledge and wisdom from people who are very experienced.
5 to 10 years, right? Okay, I think that mine would be on the nutritional aspect. Remember the other day we were talking about that guy, Eddie, I can't remember his last name, Eddie A, right? And he's one of the guys that yells at foods in the grocery store. I think that we're going to see a change with stuff like that, where people tend to, again, I guess it just goes back into the this or that thing, just in a different aspect, whether it's training or food, where they demonize certain things and say to only eat these types of things, right? For his mindset, it's all non-processed raw stuff. So like eggs, raw milk,
like the Food Lies guy.
Yeah. And then, and I think that you said we're going to see a lot more of that nuance where it's like, okay, because I hate it because he'll be like, cereal will kill you. Cereal's killing your kids. And I'm like, is cereal really doing that? Like, is it the worst thing ever? I think we're going to see a lot more nuance there where it's like, okay, these things are good in certain times. These things are good in other times. You should try your best to eat this way. Right. But
if you have a moment of weakness or a moment where you want to spend more time with family
or schedule, or you just want to enjoy something, right? Like a lot of the times I'll say, I'm not feeding my body right now. I'm feeding my mind. Right. Yeah. And it's not an excuse. It's just truth sometimes. Right. And I think that we have to accept that. Don't feel guilty about it and just kind of.
Oh, you know what I just thought of?
What? I saw it happen in your head.
Oh, dude. I think this is another one's going to go is that you have to have the 6-pack to be healthy.
Man, I'm surprised that one still exists. It's been,
you know why
that's been on for so long.
Because a lot of these fitness influencers still take a bunch of pictures after they work out. Or people who are getting into fitness and then all of a sudden they have 6-packs, they're taking pictures. But that 6-pack, even when I had mine, sometimes it would only last like 3 hours, 4 hours because I would drink water and sodium would get my diet and I would just fill up.
And it's funny, this kind of goes back to kind of bring it all the way around to the top of our podcast, is that image just sells, right? Image just sells, attractiveness sells. That's what we, a lot of people still consider peak health, right? Yep. So it's gonna sell. But I do agree. I think over time, 5-10 years, I think we will see a shift in that.
Nostradamus here. Now,
it's been a long time since we had him on the podcast.
Guys, if you like what we're doing, please share, like, subscribe. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Also, we're on YouTube. Do the good thing right now and subscribe and hit the like button. And if you're looking for a website, it's strengthsolutionsempowered.com. Our email is strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Our Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok is Strength Solutions Empowered. On Instagram, I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions.
Until next time, guys. What? Peace out.